So this one's a little bit later on. So about 16, 17 months into the mission, I got a companion, and he was notorious throughout the mission for being a weirdo. And the mission president sicked him on me, so which was great. It was fine. I was in the area for just only 12 weeks, but I'd been there for 6 weeks when I got this companion in. He was the type that was very much into video games, and he didn't go to school before the mission really, and very awkward, very antisocial in that regard. He just spent way too much time with handheld games, which, going back, I would recommend to anyone, have social skills before you go. It'll be very hard for you to get along with anybody without social skills. Anyway, moving on. Got his companion, and the first day that we were together, we were talking about investigators and the area, and I was in North Hollywood again, but in a different ward. There were several wards in North Hollywood. This one was North Hollywood 4th, or North Hollywood Cuarto. And we went over to our investigators, and I had one that it was promising. She was really nice. She was very, very Catholic, but she was practicing, and she liked her religion, and she liked learning about other religions, and she enjoyed the missionaries. And we had only taught her a couple times beforehand. So he shows up, and with my previous companion. So he shows up, and he's like, do we have anyone that we could give a baptismal date to? And he's like, Elder, I've never had a baptism. I've never taught someone all the way through. And he was only about 6 weeks, I guess, behind me in terms of time in the mission. And he never had a baptism. And it was commonplace for elders to have probably between 5 and 10 baptisms that they were a part of throughout the mission. Some had more, some had less. If you were in English work, it was hard, a lot harder than in Spanish work. And he was like, I was like, oh yeah, we have this woman, she's really nice, and maybe her. And he's like, Elder, can you promise me a baptism? Like, I really want one. And he's like, can you promise me we'll have a baptism? And a silly question. I didn't want to promise anyone to have a baptism because that sounds ridiculous. But for reasons I don't understand, I said yes. I promise you a baptism. Pressure, right? I had no idea how long we'd be together, and we were only together 6 weeks. But our final Sunday together, we had been teaching her every week, and we had members show up. Members are vital. Always remember to take members with you. But we had members come and testify, and she was getting hit hard with Satan. Like, she was definitely feeling the pressures of Satan. And we got a baptismal date for her. It was the last week of the transfer. And she was working toward it. And about a week before, she's like, wait, I don't want to get baptized, on that day. I was like, I thought we were just, just guessing a potential date or whatever. I didn't know it was set. And we're like, we set that date with you, and we're working toward that, and you're doing a great job. And she read her scriptures every day and did all the things we asked her to do. But she was the type that wanted to know everything. She was like, I need to know everything before I can get baptized. I need to know everything. And if everyone needed to know everything before I got baptized, we wouldn't have any members. We'd have 0 members, actually. So, just to let you know. And a week before her baptism, we invited her to do another baptism from a different elders in the ward. And she said, sure, I'll go. And she'd be going to church every week, and she'd been doing really well. And she came, and just before the actual ordinance of the baptism, she felt really sick, and she left. And she went out to the bathroom, and afterward we went out and found her. We're like, what happened? And she's like, oh, I felt sick, and I was nauseous, and she had thrown up in the bathroom, and she was not sick. We had talked to her hours before, and she was totally fine. And we had a member go over there that night to see if she was okay, and we testified of the power of Satan and the power of the Holy Ghost and all these things, and she was being tempted, and she was being tried. That was like her moment of fire, where she had to pass through it. And she missed the actual baptism. That was like the entire point. Like, we wanted her to see the actual baptism, and she had missed that. And we felt the Spirit, and we're like, challenged her again, like, will you get baptized next Sunday? And she's like, yes, I'll do it. Because she understood, like, what was happening. Anyway, a week after, she showed up to the baptism. We had the baptism. Everything went smoothly, and afterwards, she felt great, and she's like, wow, this is amazing. She's one of the most faithful members in that ward. So on the way home from the baptism, we had the baptism, and then a bunch of people got together for, I don't know, an activity, or just, I don't know, you might not think that a baptism warrants a party, but she had a party and whatever, we had cake and all this stuff, and it was exciting. And on the way home, my companion, right, who had promised a baptism, we had one, and I mean, he was a weird elder, but we were in the back seat, other elders were driving us home, and he he puts his head on my shoulder and he's like, Elder, thank you. He's like, I'm on cloud 9 right now. And that changed my perspective as a missionary. It just made me realize that the mission isn't all about investigators, too. It's about your companion. He needs as much care and attention as an investigator would. So I was very happy that my promise wasn't in vain or a lie. I had 6 weeks to teach this woman, which is a short amount of time. And it wasn't like every week. We got around to her probably every week, close to every week, but on average. It wasn't probably twice a week, 1 week, and 0 times another, but she would go out with the missionaries afterward and teach and help, and she told people that story. That the week before was hard, and that Satan had tried to convince her that it was the wrong thing, and she did it, and after that she was very strong. And my companion, I left after that time, and he stayed, and I went and opened a new area, and he stayed behind, and it was really his first time to be a senior companion, and he had a baptism, and he had earned, I don't know, what he saw was validation that he was doing the right thing, because he finally had a baptism. And it doesn't come down to baptisms or not, it comes down to being obedient and trying your hardest. You are not responsible for people that don't get baptized because they didn't prepare themselves or they didn't want to. You are invited to invite, and beyond that, you help them, and if they choose not to, that is not your fault. That is their choice. But that was a significant story because it involved my companion very heavily, and members and investigators, and everything came together, and she was probably ended up being the most faithful member that I ever had the chance to help baptize. But I think it's because we had goals, and we really wanted to help her, and I wanted to help my companion realize that he could make a difference. And we had other struggles, but we had our own things where he would hit me on the head, like the top of the head at the door while we were doing a contact, and I was like, why the heck are you doing this? But that was not the time nor the place, but it was all worth it in the end because of that singular event. And when he told me, I'm on cloud 9 right now, I finally had a baptism, all you. I was like, well, no, it was actually Heavenly Father who blessed us and blessed you and blessed her most of all. And that's where that story ends. We were no longer companions, but we had that moment, and I think that's probably my testimony too, that things will not always turn out the way you think they will, but when you have enough faith, sometimes God throws you a bone. And sometimes it's just because He desires your happiness and wants you to succeed, or He wants your companion to succeed or feel like he's succeeding. So you never know. Those situations are rare, I think. But if you search for them, I'm sure they become more commonplace. I probably didn't have as much faith as I would have liked to at certain points in my mission, but at that time it was very important for us to work hard because I wanted him to be happy and I wanted our investigator to get baptized and whole package. I wanted everyone to have the Spirit. Only 6 weeks.